I kind of feel like a shunned house is just one that's not featured on Zillow. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Horror Movie Syllabus. My name is Professor Victor, and I'll be your host as we go through all of the essential, noteworthy, interesting, and notorious modern horror films. If you're new to the channel, I recommend you check out that introduction video down below. It's going to give you a pretty good idea of what we do here at the Horror Movie Syllabus. It's basically a review of various subgenres of horror. We look at one and we take 3 movies from that subgenre, we explore them. But this is our Is It Syllabus-Worthy series. This is where I take a recommendation from you guys, something that you leave in the comments to one of my videos, something I haven't seen before, a horror movie I haven't seen before, and I watch it for the first time, sight unseen, blind. And then I let you know, was it syllabus worthy? Was it something that was interesting enough, notorious enough, good enough to be on the horror movie syllabus? And today, the movie that we're looking at is The Shunned House. And The Shunned House was recommended by Sky Cavelt, who I still don't know if I'm saying that name right, but Sky Cavelt left this recommendation in our Lovecraft video because it is a Lovecraft movie, Lovecraft adaptation. And that's all I had to go on because when I went back to look at the comment, I couldn't find it anymore. I don't know if it's been deleted or what, but I couldn't find it anywhere. So I had nothing else to go on other than Lovecraft. And that's actually kind of tipped off. If you look at the cover, it actually says H.P. Lovecraft's The Shunned House. And it's actually based on The Shunned House, a novella by H.P. Lovecraft that I have not read. I don't know that particular story. I've read some Lovecraft. We've talked about Lovecraft a lot now, and I've read some of it, but I have not read that. And so I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what the story was about. I didn't know anything. I didn't look up any reviews or synopses or trailers or anything before going into this. So I was trying to go in as blind as possible. And did I like it? Did I hate it? Let's find out. Like I said, the movie that we're looking at today is The Shunned House. The Shunned House came out in 2003 and was directed by someone named Ivan Zakuun, who I'm not super familiar with, but does do a lot of low-budget horror. When I looked up his IMDb, a lot of low-budget horror, including Herbert Rest's Reanimator. So a little bit familiar with some of the Lovecraftian stuff that you know, he knows the source material, at least so it would seem, but yeah, not necessarily the most well-known director and not the most well-known work, but still has quite a few credits under his belt, so presumably a capable director. And well, let's see if he was capable here. If you haven't seen this movie before, the movie's about an Italian couple who are investigating this haunted inn because of all of these people that have died at it and stuff, and the man wants to write a book about it or write a story about it, and then the woman is like a photographer who's trying to help him with his project, and they're a couple as well, and there's a lot of flashbacks to these things that have happened. Meanwhile, things are going on in the hotel. They're seeing things and visions are happening to them. So there's a lot of, you know, supernatural, strange shenanigans going on. And I'll stop there so as to not spoil the movie too much. But the movie is not just an adaptation of Lovecraft's The Shunned House. It's actually an adaptation of 3 different Lovecraft works. The novella for The Shunned House, as well as Dreams in the Witch House, which I have actually read before, and the music of Eric Zahn, which I've not read before. And they've kind of woven all 3 of these stories together, which is really interesting. That's a cool idea to do that. I like this concept of kind of weaving these Lovecraft stories into one main story. And I want to be clear, it's not like vignettes, it's not like an anthology of 3 different Lovecraft stories. They have integrated these 3 stories together into one plot. They've made it one story that all centers around the same haunted inn, and it's all done in different time periods. There's these flashbacks to past events and past characters, and you're following like all 3 different time periods at the same time simultaneously. And it's like, you know, they're going back and seeing visions of things, or they're, you know, we, the audience, are being shown things that happened in the past that are from these different stories, these different Lovecraft stories. So they're all from the same author, the same source, but it's not the same source material. But that's a cool idea. I liked that idea, and I liked that they're focusing on stories, and in particular, the aspects of the stories that are more focused on the dread and the terror and paranoia rather than actual monsters and and seeing the unseeable, the unnameable stuff that is often in Lovecraft works. That's a cool idea that admittedly is probably being driven by a low budget, and we're going to get into the budget in a bit. But it's a good way to kind of try to do like a slow burn kind of psychological horror movie. It's a good idea. Blending all these stories together and focusing on the psychological aspect of it and the dread of it is a good idea. Now, the problem is when you put three different stories together and weave them all together, it can get a little convoluted. And I think that is what happens here a little bit. The movie is a little underwritten because it doesn't do a great job of explaining what's going on. None of the stories feel like they get full attention because they've got to share the screen time with two other stories. And so it feels like it's a little underwritten, a little bit, it needed to be spoon fed just a little bit more to the audience. But it's an ambitious idea. The direction and the production of this movie is ambitious, and I want to give it credit for that because it's got a really cool, creepy location. It's a single location, right? Because it's, again, low budget, but they found a really cool villa that they've converted into this haunted inn that serves as the location for three different time periods. So they're just redressing the set and we're making it work. And it's a cool location. It's inherently kind of creepy, and they really are able to tap into that to set up some really good, disturbing imagery. There's some, I'll call them jump scares, although I think they're not really meant to make you jump so much, but things that kind of pop up that are kind of unsettling looking or scary or whatever, things that kind of ghostly images or visions or whatever. But it's really focusing on the atmosphere. It's a very atmospheric movie. It's a mood piece. It's trying to be a slow burn, moody atmosphere piece that is, kind of just making you feel unsettled. It's trying to tap into the Lovecraftian sense of dread and give that to the audience. It's trying to make a dreadful movie for the audience, if you will. And like I said, it's a bit of a convoluted movie. It's a slow burn movie, and the stories are interwoven, and it can be a little hard to follow. And it's a movie that demands your attention. You have to pay attention to this or else you're going to get lost. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure it's earning your attention. It doesn't want to be a schlocky slasher giving you TNA and gore and violence and jump scares and kills. It's trying to be, dare I say, a little bit more elevated, if you will. It's trying to give you something a little bit smarter, a little bit more psychological, and not give you the base lowest common denominator type stuff. And that's a great ambition, but I think it might have been the wrong instinct for this movie because of the budget. It kind of a catch-22 here. I don't think they had the money to show cool Lovecraftian monsters and crazy gore and stuff like that. But on the flip side, they didn't really have the budget to do the movie, this elevated, like high concept horror that they wanted to do. The budget really hurts the final product, the ambitious product that they had in mind. The movie looks cheap. Like, it's shot on video. It looks like it's shot on video. It looks very flat. The lighting and the cinematography is not good. They're kind of wasting that really cool location by not lighting it very well. It's very poorly lit. I don't mean that everything's dark. I just mean, in fact, if anything, it's not dark enough sometimes. It's lit in a way that it looks like soap opera-y. You know what I mean? It doesn't look cinematic. And they don't have the right people behind the camera to give it the look that they want it to have. They don't have the money to get good actors. The actors they have here are passable at best. They're not great. In particular, the female lead is pretty rough. And I do think it has something to do with the fact that everybody here is speaking with a thick Italian accent, because it's clear that they are not, English is not their first language. And I think that hurts the performances. They are not acting in their native language. And it shows. It shows, and it hinders things. Like I said, some of them are passable, some of them are not. That lead actress, pretty rough. She's there, I think, mostly for really impressive cleavage. More on that in a minute, believe it or not. But it's a shame because they have some really cool, scary images, and they have some cool transitions when they transition from scene to scene, or from like one time period to another, or they transition into these visions or whatever. They do some really cool stuff, but it looks cheap. It's not great because of the lack of budget. As a result, these moments, these creepy images and transitions and visions and stuff like that just aren't enough to overcome some of these flaws. You've got this cool setup, you've got this cool location, you've got great source material, and yet you've kind of smushed it all together, trying to make something unique and challenging and artistic, and it doesn't ever really come together. It doesn't really congeal into something that is, as ambitious as they wanted it to be, as impressive as they wanted it to be. And look, I get it. It's hard to translate this unknowable aspect of Lovecraftian text onto screen. I get that. Lots of people struggle with that. And honestly, it might have been better for them to kind of lean into something a little bit more schlocky, frankly. But I acknowledge and appreciate the effort, the ambition, the attempt to give us something deeper and smarter than the average slasher flick. I think it was a cool idea and a good intention, but I just don't think they had the money/talent to pull it off. Frankly, I do think the director has some talent. I don't think he has the money to do what he's trying to do, and I think that the talent on screen left a lot to be desired. And if you had more money, you could probably get some better actors, and or maybe just make the whole movie in Italian. Maybe that alone might have made a difference in terms of the performances. But it was a little bit strained on the performances, to say the least, and the script was a little convoluted. It needed to be spelled out a little bit more. We needed some payoff. We needed some final set piece, or something to, an incident, a monster, something to pay off at the end, and it doesn't ever really do that. And again, it's kind of being true to the source material to some degree, at least stuff I'm familiar with, but it lacked an impact at the end of the day. And does that mean that it doesn't make the horror movie syllabus? Well, it's time to find out. So, does the Shunned House make the horror movie syllabus? Nah, nah. I am going to have to shun the Shunned House. I gotta tell you, it's not gonna beat out the best of Lovecraft. It doesn't even sniff the best of Lovecraft. It doesn't even beat out the mid range Lovecraft, like the middle of the road stuff. It really does fall short, and it's a shame, because it is a really cool idea to kind of blend together multiple Lovecraft stories and make them into one story, one idea, one concept. But it just never really comes together. Like I said, it just never congeals into something that where the whole becomes greater than its parts. I would have rather have seen three separate movies about the three separate stories than to see them put together. But I liked the idea. It's a good instinct. It really is a money issue. I think that with some better financing, I think this would have been stronger. But as it stands, it winds up being a little too slow, frankly. It winds up being a little dull. Like I said, the plot is a little convoluted. It really demands a lot of attention. And I think the director is giving the audience a little too much credit, instead of spoon feeding them and kind of, holding them by the hand and taking them through the plot. It's really kind of letting you understand it yourself and put the pieces together yourself and follow it yourself. And it doesn't make it super easy for you. It's not trying to intentionally make it harder. It's just depending on you to be smart enough to follow it. And I think that might be a bit of a mistake, honestly, because even I had a hard time following some of it, and I was paying attention to it, and so I think that it's a little underwritten, a little underserved. The audience would do better to have it be a little bit more simplified and easier to follow. And again, have a little bit of stuff in there, a little bit of sex appeal, a little bit of gore, something like that, to kind of keep us going, so that it doesn't feel so slow and dull earlier on. And especially because you don't really get a payoff on it. I think it could have benefited from being a little bit more schlocky, a little bit more exploitative. Like I mentioned the female lead in her cleavage. That's because I read reviews of this after watching it, And like every review mentions that cleavage. Like, and it's prominent. It's really there. But there's no nudity in this movie. There's no sex in this movie. There's no gore in this movie. There's really barely any violence in this movie. And so it could have used some of that stuff. Maybe it needed to be a little bit more prurient, a little bit more base, a little bit more schlocky and exploitative to kind of satiate the need for something to be happening on screen a little bit more. But as it stands, it doesn't really deliver on that, and it doesn't want to. It wants to be something deeper than that, but it doesn't deliver on that either. And it's not for lack of an effort. You've got some talent behind the camera, you've got some really good ideas, you've got really good source material, but you have no money. You don't have enough money to pull off what you're trying to do. So as a result, it winds up falling short, and that's a bummer. It's really a disappointment because I think they had something here, and I would love to see them get another crack at it with a little bit better financing, a little bit better budget, and maybe a rewrite on that script, something to tighten it up a little bit to make it feel a little bit more cohesive and a little more coherent, a little easier to follow, streamline it a little bit, give us a payoff. There's some stuff that could be done. This is a fixable movie with a little bit of money and a little bit of time. And I think you could have had something really good here. But as it stood, it falls short for sure for me. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. I see the missed potential, and it's a bummer. But that's my thoughts on the Shunned House. Like I said, it's something that had a lot of promise and potential, but ultimately left me feeling a little bit cold. I felt a little shunned on it. Okay, I'll stop with the shunned puns. Shunned puns. Anyways, have you guys seen this one? Let me know if you guys like this better than I do. But I don't think it's a waste of time, but it might be a little bit of an endurance of your time because it is a little slow. So let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will let you know what I think of this Horror Trivia Pursuit card that I just pulled out. It's that time where I answer a question live on camera. And I think I'll go with the psychological question, psychological category for the question, because this movie is trying to be a psychological horror movie. I don't know how successful it is, but it's trying to be that. So here's our question. At the end of 2013's Mama, with whom does Lily elect to stay? Annabelle or the titular Mama? And I'll tell you, the whole thing with the names, I've talked about this ad nauseum. The names in horror movies don't tend to stick for me, but that's not really relevant to this question, because it's giving you the names and it's giving you basically a 50-50 shot. Annabelle or Mama. And hello, buddy. My cat decided he wants to try to help with the question. I don't think you know the answer, buddy. But the 50-50 shot makes this a lot easier. Now, I have seen this movie, and I can't remember. Have we talked about this I don't know if we've talked about this on the channel. I don't think we've actually talked about it on the channel, but we might in the future. It's a pretty good movie, and it's funny because it's a pretty good movie. I remember enjoying the movie, but I never remember the specifics of it. Oh, bye. He got bored, I guess. I never remember the specifics of it very well, and so I don't feel super confident in this question. But because they gave me a 50-50, I do feel confident in it. Like, had they not said that, if they had just said, with whom does Lily like to stay, I might have struggled with this. I might have found this harder than I actually find it. But with the 50-50, I'm feeling pretty good about this one. I think I know this one pretty well. And like I said, if you've seen the movie, then you probably know the answer to this. But if you haven't seen the movie, 50-50 shot, right? So just take a guess. And we'll be getting a lot of these kind of like multiple choice or true-false type 50-50 type questions, which a little softer, honestly. Maybe we need to get some more challenging questions going on, but maybe I should be careful what I wish for, right? So anyways, enough prattling. Lock in your answer. I'm going to go ahead and answer, and I'm going to say it's Mama. She elects to stay with Mama. Like, that's what I remember. And let's just check the credit card. The card says Mama. So yeah, that's the answer. And like I said, 50-50 made that a lot easier for me. I wouldn't have necessarily got it right had I not had that. But anyways, let me know what you guys answered. But I guess if it's the wrong answer, it's Annabelle. So anyways, thank you for staying to the end of the video, and thank you for the recommendations. Thank you, Sky Cabell, for this recommendation. It was an interesting one. Sorry, I didn't make the syllabus, but I'm still glad you did it. And by the way, send me other Lovecraft recommendations, other ones that I haven't seen that you think are definitely worth mentioning, or even if they're not Lovecraft, just recommendations, man. You guys do good recommendations. I'm having a good time with this series. I really enjoy it, so keep them coming. Until next week, and when we do something completely different, I'm just going to say class dismissed.